We don't do what you do it worse.
I am very blessed. I mean,
Crap.
very difficult.
It hurts. Hey, but you were just kind of, took the wind out of my sails. The real job they did not ever.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barbara's not here tonight, so I'll do my best.
I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah.
Audience introductions. If you would, please state your name. You can stand up if you want. We'll start with the young lady in.
Alyssa.
Alyssa. I know.
Hi, everyone. I teach here at the high school. I'm the class of 2025 advisor and the president of the teachers. I'm Alyssa McLean, the senior. I'm Layla Merrill, I'm a senior. I'm Emily Woods, and I'm a senior.
Cody St. Germain, I'm the boys basketball coach at high school, and the president of Carthage.
Adjustments to the, there are no adjustments to the agenda. So we just skip that. Consideration of the minutes in your package is the minutes from the last meeting. I'd like a motion to approve them or
Some of we've already seen them.
Second.
yeah, any discussion or anything? Anybody want to look at it for a second or? Okay. We had a motion, we had a second. All those in favor? Anybody not voting or opposed?
Not voting.
Public comments. That would be, let me those young ladies up there.
Nope, They're on the agenda.
All right. Communications, we'll turn that over to Pam.
I have no new communications for the board. I was on break last week, so nobody could get a hold of me.
Under old business, we have some Region 9 updates. We have Bruce or Brian, and Wayne Thurston is also on board for RSU 56. Anybody want to add anything?
I don't know if anyone reported out at your last meeting. I wasn't here at the last meeting. I usually report out on the first meeting of the month for the RSU 56. Region 9 met usually the first Wednesday of each month. Do you know if they reported anything out?
Don't believe
You want me
we did.
to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we met on, it was April 2nd. It was a Wednesday. We met, it was a pretty short meeting. It was mostly to deal with our budgetary numbers. We had some, we were fortunate as well that our insurance came in at a lower amount. It allowed us to refigure all of the numbers that we were going to be passing on to each constituents. We're able to reduce our budget by a significant amount, and we're able to reduce the additional amounts to each of the 3 regions by a significant amount. So I think for RSU 56, I think we were at 10 or 12,000.
That's 1,200.
We're down to 1,200, so it was quite a significant difference. For RSU 10, they saw a very significant difference because of the, again, it's all a formula, which, to be honest with you, do I understand it? No. Does our director understand it? No, but you follow the formula, it tells you how this works. And the formula just allowed each district to be reduced. The only one that was seeing a significant increase was the Telstar region because of the number of students that they had coming into the program that went on. Our numbers are scary to say are getting higher and higher. We're to a point where we don't know for sure. We're getting students that we're putting on wait lists and trying to shuffle things around. So it's like anything, you wait till, you know, everything go through, and then next fall, you actually wait as with anything to find out what the actual numbers will be. Our last count was even higher than what we went through this year. I thought this year was the record, now we're gonna hit another record, so do I have an actual number right now? I don't wanna go and say, other than I can say it's more students than we saw this year. So it's all gonna hinge on, again, you've got all people that have gone through and sent in the applications and see where we go from there. They ended up, I was gone during that, so they had a special board meeting on April 9th. That special board meeting was to have the directors approve a warrant to, it was called a resolution to authorize a loan agreement. It was the bond that we had set up, or a grant that we had set up. And what you need to do is you first need to take out a bond, and then the state reimburses you. And it is the amount of money that we're gonna be receiving for Region 9, that will be allowing us to buy a lot of equipment, a lot of supplies. Again, there's another win-win situation for the district, so that they could get these necessary supplies and equipment, and get all of these programs, continue all the programs going, as well as also fund some more of the new programs that we've got going on. New programs, meaning the new program buildings. Right now, where most people have still, and I keep hearing the buzz of wondering what's going on with our new buildings. They're almost to a point where they're at completion. The question is we cannot occupy them still. So we're in the process of trying to get a resolution to that. Yes, we will get a resolution to it. Do I have the answer to it? Not yet. So, all pending on what we can get for it, but we're trying to get all the constituents together that are involved in this program and this, grant and this building process, and get some answers to what we can do will allow us to take occupancy to it. My goal as on this board is to see that this program is going to be opening, and we're hoping, if we get our fingers crossed and all T's crossed, that we'll be able to utilize these buildings this fall. So, but time will tell what we can get done, so, and that's kind of what we've got so far.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, you should, yeah.
When you said that the numbers are really high, are gonna be higher than even last year for signing up for different programs,
Yeah,
right? Is there any specific ones that are higher than others, like
I don't have the numbers with me, but all I can say is all programs and
all of them?
a lot of the programs are maxed out. Some programs people have been put on wait lists. Some of the programs have a little bit of room for them. So some people, depending on what they're looking at, may say, gee, this is what I was looking at, but boy, this was, it would be an opportunity to go into here. So, it's right now, we're kind of concerned because we're kind of like packed to the walls. So
Yeah.
it's a good feeling. It's a nice feeling.
But it's an issue, huh?
But it comes down to trying to get everybody, you'd love to be able to appease and accommodate everyone, but we're doing our best.
Okay.
Any other questions? So now we'll move on to new business, and Coach St. Germain will come up to the podium and present us on the outside basketball court project.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I kind of have a twofold reason for being here and asking for permission on some upcoming projects with the outdoor basketball court, and also just giving an update on how things have been going so far. For anyone that doesn't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, we started fundraising for this outdoor basketball court. It's located out behind the tennis courts behind the school. And came together pretty well, got a lot of donations early on, and since then have been kind of picking away at it. Not so much due to lack of funding, but just because of some of the people we worked with being slow at getting things done, and also just learning the lesson of not taking on a project like this by myself the next time we do it. So, I learned that the hard way. So anyway, to date, we've raised about a little over $40,000 for this project. All through local small business and local community support from individuals and families and people that have been involved in basketball and people that have been involved in the community, and just a whole lot of different people. The next thing that's likely going to get completed is we have a sign from Eric Designs that he has made, and is going to be hung up somewhere outside of the court, and we're working hopefully this weekend on getting posts put in and the sign put up. It looks really cool. It has all of the logos for the bigger businesses that donated to it. We had a tiered system depending on how much money was donated by each person, and so some people got a logo put on, some got their names put on, and I don't know the exact number, but there's a large amount. It's a really neat sign. Can't wait to see that go up. We have, I just talked to Mary, I think it was just over $10,000 left in this account. So we do have some room for some upcoming things that we want to get done. I'm looking into lines right now, which we've been working on for a while. There's a company we talked to about 2 years ago that every year has kept pushing it off like a month here and a month there, and every time they were gonna come, and it rained, and they just never really followed through on making it a point to come out here to Dixfield to make that happen. So Sarah Thurston has reached out and has found another person that may be able to do this for us. So once we get that, it should be really cool. We should be able to have some games for some of the local area youth kids and alumni and whoever else may want to be there. Once we get the lines out there, it should look a lot more like a basketball court. But as of now, there are 2 really nice hoops out there, really high quality hoops. The court's been sealed and it looks really nice. I think kids are using it quite a bit. Definitely getting a lot of use. Tend to take a peek out there every time I ride home and slow down and see what little kids are out there shooting around for the future here. But it's been cool to see a lot of use and a lot of adults out there too, and alumni, and I think it's a great way to keep the community involved. Other things that we're looking into are getting some bleachers put out there potentially. Like I said, the lines, the signs being put up. We've talked a little bit about something to put around the perimeter of the court, which I'm open to ideas from people for in the future. Fencing has been very expensive. It is outside of what I think the benefit of it is outweighed by how expensive that the fencing would be to go around the whole court. So we've looked into potentially fencing on the ends of the court behind the hoops, and Mount Abram has put in a similar court and put large rocks scattered throughout, like in an organized fashion around to make it so that vehicles couldn't get through, which I think actually looks really nice when you look at it. I do have pictures, I didn't bring them, but it does look pretty cool. And I think might fit in well with our rural Western Maine basketball court setting. But we are looking into that. And the big thing that I wanted to come to talk to you about today was lights. And we have got quotes. Larry LaPointe was going to be here, but they had a middle school baseball game that he's at today, so he couldn't come here. He was my electrical guy that knew everything about that side of things. So don't drill me too much on these questions, but he does have the answers and provided me with some numbers that look like foreign language to me. But anyway, we have all of the money and then some to be able to put these lights up. He got a phenomenal deal from Gilman Electric on these lights that he got a couple of years ago and was able to get the same quote from them now. And it was a significant discount, and they did it to help with this project as sort of a donation in a way. So that came in just under $2,000 to do this whole project for the lights. He's gonna found an adapter that he can use off of the tennis court lights to face out towards the basketball court to have full coverage of the court. So like I said, that's $2,000. We have all the money in the account to be able to cover that. And what I come to you all today about is the ongoing expenses of the lights. He has the numbers for me here as well, and those came in a lot cheaper than I expected as well. With LED lights, they came in what I consider pretty cheap. He was not sure about what the school pays for a rate, so he gave me all of the different numbers for a range of different outcomes based on that. But it ranged somewhere between $150 and $100 a year to run those lights at 4 hours a day. So he had numbers for 6 hours and 8 hours, but I don't foresee that being something that we need. So 4 seemed like more of the logical amount of hours to be run. I don't have specifics of what we would do for a system of whether it would run every day at a certain time, whether there would be a switch to turn it on. But what I do know is we have plenty of money to be able to, without dipping into any school budgets, to put in those lights. And all we're looking for is to figure out if we can get the okay to run that through the budget as an increase in the electrical expenses. So that's what I have for you, and he's Larry has donated his labor to put in all of these lights, so that's another big cost savings for us as well. So he's ready to get started on that soon. We we get the okay, can we get to roll on some of these things, and also just kind of want to get the general okay that these other projects are putting in the bleachers and the lines and everything that, I'll be working with Mary, obviously, on the finances and getting the money for that and everything, but just wanted the okay to kind of go about that where summer's coming up soon and we might not have as easy access to you all for answer some of these questions. So,
And the lights be rotated out so that the ball field can use them too.
I don't know.
Curious, because all the parents park and turn on their lights, because it gets so dark, I was just wondering.
Right. Well, they,
Can't count
I
on
think you probably have to put another pole on the other side, but he did look into that option too, and he talked to them and found that just on one side would cover the court well enough
Wow.
to be able to do it. And he did talk to me about the possibility if it didn't cover it quite as well as we wanted to, we could always look into it in the future out of our account to put in a pole with a light on the other side, but he doesn't anticipate that.
Random, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Would you plow that in the winter or just shut it down?
just shut it down.
Looking for a motion for Cody to put up his lights and paint and bleachers. Takers,
So move. Second.
all those in, any further discussion or all those in favor?
I got a question for you.
There you go.
The only thing I would ask is that, I know you said about the lights and having them turned on, I'm hoping that they would look at some type of a switch to it. Number one is that, you know, again, it's not gonna be used every day, so we sure heck don't want it turned on every day. So if it has some type of switch, but the switch is gonna wanna be on a timer that it can't, someone goes by at midnight, decides, hey, let's flick the switch on.
Right.
So
No power.
there's gonna be a little technical problems that I know you don't know the answer to, and neither do I, but hopefully the person that's doing it can figure out some way to make it so it's gonna be working in an equitable, so it'll work correctly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think he would be more than willing to move in whatever direction that the school gave for that, of however we wanted to go about that. I'm sure he has
He's very knowledgeable.
answers of how to do that. So, if we have a thought process of exactly what we
Well,
want.
what
done with
about
that.
like on a hot tub, you know how you have the switch and it runs for so long and then it turns off?
Right, well, that's, I mean,
And how did the tennis courts one?
Do they?
That's what I was
don't know.
wondering was how the
I don't-
tennis
I don't know
courts
how they
work, because I think you'd probably just set it up similarly.
Yeah,
Actually, the internet switches they're cost effective now, you just. Goes through the internet, turns the switch, on.
Yep,
You're not alone. Any other discussion or questions on Cody or? All those in favor of making a motion, someone gonna make a motion there? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes.
Yes.
Thank you, Cody. Moving on to project graduation. You guys want to come up here and tell us all about it?
My name is Melissa McLean, I'm a student council rep here at Maryland. I'm Emily Woods, I'm the class treasurer. I'm Layla Merrill, I'm the class president. I'm also Alex, I'm the class secretary, and I'm also a student council rep.
And I'm Heidi from Home with Class Advisor.
So we're here today to request the use of the school buses for our project trip. That's on June sixth.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sorry.
We're all, a lot of us are.
We're here to request the uses of the school buses for Project Grad, and that's on June sixth. We plan to leave Derigo at approximately around 8 p.m. and we're heading to Portland to go to Texas Roadhouse. We plan to get there around 9:30 and stay until around 11 p.m. And that's when they close, so we'll be out by 11 p.m. We plan to go to Urban Air after the trampoline park. We plan to get there around 11:30 and we plan to leave by 3:30-ish and drive home to Derigo. We plan to get here around 5 a.m. and we're here till 6 a.m. to do practices.
And right now, we are requesting 2 bus drivers. But in a few weeks, we'll get more of an estimate of how many people will be attending, so that number might change. And we are also planning to get hotel rooms for the bus drivers so they can rest.
and to clarify Leila's point, they're asking for 2 buses. That would be if everybody in the class goes, they could fit on 2 buses. If they don't need 2 buses, then they would only ask for 1.
We have letters prepared to be sent out to every student in the graduating class. We're just waiting on approval tonight to send those letters out.
Have you RSVP'd in Texas Roadhouse? Yeah, I'm just thinking, that's a lot of young people.
We have already communicated with them and asked them if they could take a large group at that time of night, because like, as somebody who used to work in the food service industry, that's a lot.
I know, I was thinking.
Of a restaurant at that time of night. But they said that they could accommodate us, and as soon as we do have our final head count here in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to call them back with an actual number and let them know.
So how would you get from Texas Roadhouse to Urban Air?
The bus.
The bus, and then the bus drivers would go retire until
Yeah,
you're ready to go.
They go and rest and then come back and pick us up around 3:30
3:30?
in the morning.
That's what I thought. Better you than me. So we'd be paying for that then, the fuel.
They cover the cost of the bus.
Okay,
And the bus drivers, right?
okay.
Then they've been fundraising since day
Yeah.
one. I know,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I know Miss Broomall's in charge. They've done.
Like 8th grade,
Quite a few.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Negative from paying for that last year.
They have, so the class has raised enough money so that the students who choose to attend will not have to pay for anything. They don't have to pay for dinner, they don't have to pay for entrance at the jump park. They won't have to pay for like snacks and waters for the bus ride down. They can bring their own money if they want to pay like above and beyond what the class is providing, but there is no cost to any student who attends if they just want to like go along for the ride, there will be no cost to any student who attends.
So you think you'll get most of the class to go or what?
We'll find out, we're hoping.
How many might be in your class?
40,
46.
I feel like there's 48.
Somewhere around there.
Let me look at my laptop.
Sounds good.
So once again, we're looking for a motion to.
Make a
approve
motion that we accept and provide transportation for the student.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed?
Have a good time.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Now we have budget updates with Ms. Doyle.
I'll be short and sweet tonight. All the work is spent before this, hopefully. So just in case, well, we have Rachel here, so she hasn't heard it from me before. So every time we organize the budget, we talk about how does it support our strategic plan, what's best for our students, how we support our current employees, and how we respond to our community concerns. So in the past, I've shared with you that we have some positives in this budget. The state does intend to remain at 55%. State budget recently passed, question mark, expected preliminary ED 279 to stand. We have a significant increase in our preliminary ED 279 of over $838,000. We have in our bank the $277,500 that we use as balance forward when we start each budget. We have locked in heating, fuel, diesel, and all of that. As I've shared with you before, we locked in and then we had a notice that it went up 10% because of the tariffs, but it's still locked in. Region 9 increase was only $1,200 this year compared to what we thought it was gonna be, and our health insurance came in at a 3.2% increase. Some unknowns that we still have, we have one contract that's being negotiated and one still to be ratified. We have a probable property and casualty insurance increase. We have in the budget 12% for that, and I have continued concerns around federal funding, which is Title I and local entitlement. And as I've said before, that's about $750,000 for RSU 56 each year. So far, the budget we've discussed, the board said they tentatively wanted to go with a 6.2% budget to budget increase. With that, in order to be at 6.2%, we had to cut a special ed tech at the high school. We cut the hot water booster heater, which you know, you approved out of Gina's budget to do this year, so that's good. We reduced social work at the middle school by 5,000, and we reduced the elementary school tech related software by 2,300. And we also cut one classroom teacher at the elementary school for 79,000. So to get to 6%. At 6.2%, Canton will see a decrease of 2.024%. Carthage will see a decrease of 2.744. Dixfield will see an increase of 3.517, and Peru will see an increase of 0.957. I just want to go back to Dixfield. Dixfield's issue is their valuation went up significantly, and that's why they're seeing an increase over the others.
We had a good one.
And whatever number you decide on tonight, hoping to go with the 6.21, but hey, if you decide on something different, whatever you decide on, we will get the actual figures from the towns again on the $100,000 house. The closest one we have right now is at 6%. Canton would see a decrease of $32 on every 100,000. Carthage would see a decrease of $36.13. Dixfield would see an increase of $38, and Peru, we were told, would not be impacted either way. We will get that for you exactly once we know what you will.
So it'll go in the newsletter too.
It will go in the newsletter, so it's exact. I don't want to be at 6.21 and give them a 6%. I mean, you still ought to be able to get pretty close with your figures, but I'd like to have that. So of the proposed cut list that was not cut was that $133,974. We had talked about this last time, that we proposed that the math interventionist would go back in the budget. So we can continue to provide that at the middle school, which also would negate the need to split our foreign language teacher, world language teacher between the high school and the middle school, so we can continue to ensure that we get all of those upper level courses here. We will look into what boys and girls tennis back in. We will look into put the chess club back in, and the guidance software back in at $9,000. So we were looking at that $66,771. It's like, these are the things that we want to say are going back in. I put an asterisk underneath that. All of that, I just need to be clear, all of that is contingent on what happens with our federal funds. If we do not get our federal funds, we're going to have to, we won't be looking at changing your 6.21% budget, the budget increase, but as the administrative team, we will be looking at how do we support the elementary school, because you're talking 2 teaching positions and 7 ed tech positions that are paid as Title I at the elementary school right now. So we would have to reroute this and other things in order to support the elementary school. So I just want to be clear with that. And we were waiting, I'd asked last time if the administrative team could wait on that to prioritize the other $67,203 cuts. Whether they go back in as what was cut, or if they go back in as something else, would like to have that flexibility as we move forward, because there are still too many unknowns for your superintendent to be particularly confident with a lot of things. So these are just the increases over the time that you've been RSU 56. I think it's important for people to just see that I do believe that the school board and the administrative team has worked pretty hard to keep our increases down year to year. So I think it's important. It will be in the newsletter. I just think it's good information to have. So tonight, you're gonna vote on the budget. And then on May 13th, at our next meeting, you would be signing warrants. Just want to be clear, that meeting will be at the middle school. There's a concert here that night, so we will be meeting at the middle school on the 13th. On the 27th, we will be back here for a budget hearing validation meeting. And then on June 10th, you'll have the chance to vote in all 4 of them now.
Can you put that one back up for 1 more second, so I can just write those down?
Sure.
I'm just gonna take a picture of the screen.
I can send it to you too.
And I can just plug it in the calendar.
You all should have access that I shared with you, a Google Calendar, and it has all your dates in it. If you're good with Google.
Yeah, if not, I'm saying that's help there.
All right, then that's the budget overview for tonight.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can. I was gonna go back to my seat, but I couldn't.
Well, you don't- I think you can probably answer. So our additional funding savings for health insurance was 133,974.
Yep.
And
Take one of those and then one of these.
Sorry, Ruth is trying to ask me a question. Just want to make sure everybody hears it and hears the answer.
So if we have that type of funding left over, you're looking at utilizing half of it, why wouldn't you take half of it and it's offset more for the towns?
The cut list, the board at the last meeting decided they didn't want to go into the cut list other than what we showed.
they wanted to put those things back in. And I don't disagree with putting them back in, but I had asked that, like, instead of just saying we're absolutely putting these things back in, can we have a little bit of flexibility in that? Because I have some pretty grave concerns on not having federal funds and not being able to support the elementary school, so. That they just decided they didn't want to cut any further than that.
Well, you wouldn't be really cutting because you're already adding back in, but you still have some money left over. I just don't want to see that money left over utilized. See, either make it for savings for the towns or make it so that we have some money sitting aside in federal funds. And
Can you put back the cut list from last time?
The last meeting?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is what they looked at last time, Bruce. They looked at not wanting to go down to, the third and fourth box over. To keep those in the budget. And I agree with those, keeping them in the budget. I just wanted to hedge a little bit to give us a little bit of opportunity to look at. Instead of saying we're absolutely gonna put $2,000 back in the curriculum materials line, like, what if? And what if we needed to have, you know, social work contracted service, like, I'd love to have that back at Charlie's school. He's reached out to, community concepts, and they think they'll be able to have somebody. So I would love to have that. I think it's needed. But again, I don't want to sign that contract until I know about federal funds. Like, everything that's on those lists, we felt like we should keep. I'm just asking the board to give us a little hedging room, not knowing the unknowns of the federal funds at this point.
I'm just looking from the standpoint that, prior to the meeting, unfortunately, I was here last, but prior to that, we had set a line of what we looked at for a budget. We had also set what we were looking at for the cut list. Now we've got some additional money coming in. My concern is that we have too many if this and if that, that we're already starting to utilize a good chunk of that money. It's concern to me is the ifs could hit us hard.
The ifs could hit us hard. I would agree completely, but reserving those, the third and the fourth line. Those are all things that I would want in the budget. If we need to, I would come back to you and say, these are the things we're not going to move forward with because we need to have X, Y, and Z because we didn't give these funds. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, these were in order to have that savings that you're talking about, these things would have to be cut.
So here's a question, I think I'm picking up what he's laying down. So say the federal funds come through and everything goes smoothly, then we still have that $60-some thousand. What's gonna happen to that?
So this is what would probably happen. I would tell Charlie, yes, please go ahead and get your contract with social work provider.
So that would
I'm
go
just
back
saying, we're
into-
not moving forward too deeply with any of this just yet,
Until we're sure.
until we're more sure.
Okay.
But if you cut it out, then I have none of that flexibility.
Right.
Like, if everything comes in and federal funds are fine, then we can move forward with
The
basically
program.
The
everything.
plan,
up
which
here.
was like those two columns on the right,
Mhm.
we wouldn't cut, like we.
Right, that's what
funded
you
them.
decided, that's what you
Yeah.
talked about last
Right,
time,
exactly.
just cutting the first two columns and not cutting the columns 3 and 4.
So either way, the funds would be utilized, they wouldn't just be left over.
They would not be leftover funds, no. No, about the minute I said, Dr. Swan, you can sign a contract for social work, it will be signed, you know what I mean, it's just. Any other questions that I can answer? Does that make sense, Bruce?
Well, I know what you're looking at, it just, it seems. If we're going with the actual
6.2.
number that we proposed for a budget,
6.1, yeah, don't look at the yellows at the top there, they're nothing
No,
anymore.
those aren't right.
right, but I'm just saying. We approved it, now we've got some extra money left over because of health insurance. And now we're adding back in of what we had approved to take out.
Nope, so they never took them out.
No, we never.
The board never voted to take columns 3 and 4 out, because last time we were here, I had found out that we were at 3.2%. And they said, given that we're at 3.2%, we would like to keep this stuff in and stay at a 6.2%.
6.2 is still gives 6.2, taking the first two columns out.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
All right. I guess,
I think, will you have something?
Yeah, the only thing I'm looking at is 5.3 last year, 6.2 this year, that's 11.5. I don't know if the taxpayer is gonna go along with us.
Yeah, I.
And there's so many things that you don't have control of, the state. I mean. It, I think we've got to tighten it up a little bit more until we get through this year's hurdles.
I think what we have to do as a board, you people, as you're out there talking to people is, I think anybody that you talk to would agree that their household budgets are going up more than 6%. And I think the school budget at 6% is still, it's pretty tight. Like we are not even going to have everything we had this year. We are cutting positions and programs in order to keep it at 6.2%.
I mean, because the original one, if we were to go forward, was like 8 point something, right? It was pretty high.
Right. And I hear you, like, I worked really hard to be as fiscally responsible as we can to our 4 towns because it's important. And we also have a strategic plan and we have 740 kids to educate, like it's challenging, but I do hear you and I hope that the towns can understand why it's at where it's at.
I think the other thing that is really important to communicate this year is that the school budget year on year is up 6%. Our state funding is up 10%, right? 10-ish%, is that right? So when we look at the actual impact to our taxpayers, like when I look at being from Canton, yes, the school budget is up 6%, but the actual town assessment, what Canton is going to contribute to the school is less than what they spent last year. So I mean, I guess like for me, I'm not gonna represent our constituents and vote for any more cuts when a 6% budget is already, like we've already made cuts to the school level. And I think we've been pretty responsible. When we look at across our 4 towns, it's less than a 1% increase on town assessments. And when we look at local, like other surrounding districts, I know like Nazinskit, that region of 10, like they're looking at double-digit tax, like actual town assessments. And so I think it's important that we communicate there is the school budget year on year, but what's really important is what it does to our taxes, right? And when we actually look at what the towns are responsible for, it's not 6% on my taxes. And so I think that that's an important thing to also communicate clearly.
well, before we entertain a motion or anything, I guess I'd like to give everybody a chance to speak on whatever their thoughts are. I'll give you mine first if you want. If you're gonna go canoeing and you don't know how hard the wind's gonna blow, you probably wanna paddle into the wind instead of downstream, so. What Pam was getting at, federal funding and everything. Personally, myself, we don't wanna, we have to make cuts to offer less to the students. We wanna offer these students everything they can. I'm glad we got the tennis and the other chess and extracurricular activities there. We certainly don't wanna cut teachers. We certainly don't wanna struggle in math intervention. So I'm all good with a 6.21%. If you can all stomach it and we can pass it in the town meeting at the Warren and everything. That's my thoughts. Don, you kind of gave yours. You want to add anything else?
Well, the only thing is, we don't know if we're gonna get that 838,000 next year from the state. And if we don't get that, then next year is gonna be even a bigger increase for the taxpayers. And I said I'd go along with 5, but I wouldn't go any more than 5. I won't do anything towards it.
Bruce, how about you?
we'll let the taxpayers decide if they want to vote us down, and then vote us down.
My question is gonna be kind of. Start out with when we had again, not unfortunately not here at the last meeting, but. What would our increase, I know we're at 6.21. If you have the 133,974 additional funds, what would that have reduced it down to if we took that?
Mary's getting that for you right now.
So you just wanna know what the percentage increase would be?
Right, instead of 6.21, what would be at
What was that, 133?
974?
So you're talking if we hadn't have added back in those two columns, the math interventionist and those things.
What I'm saying is if what we had agreed to prior to the meeting, I wasn't here, we looked at a 6.21 meeting, 6.21 budget, which had those 4 columns removed. If we went forward with it. Now we've got some extra money, so I decided to hang on to
I
the
don't,
2.
I was gonna say, I don't think anyone ever agreed to
No, we
taking out
asked
those
the
4
question.
columns. We asked for what that looked like.
Right.
I don't think that there was ever consensus on
Nothing
it.
has been
Right.
approved, but that's what we were looking at. If we went, the consensus was 6.21. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what came into play. So my question comes into play is now that we've got extra money or alternative the other way, say we didn't get that extra money, would we have stayed with the 6.21 and would we have then been approving to remove those 4 columns?
I would have voted to keep those last 2 columns
So
in.
you would have gone with the higher than 6.21.
Yes,
Okay.
I would have voted, my vote would have been to keep those 2 columns because I think some of those things are pretty important.
So I guess that, Mike, do you have an answer for mine?
5.3.
5.3, okay.
Joy, would you like to comment?
Oh, I would agree with where we're at right now. If it gets turned down, we'll have to double back, I guess, but I would go with what we have now.
I would agree too with the 6.21, but the problem is, you know, as much as I'd love to be around 5%, we're cutting a lot of opportunities for kids that if they didn't have those particular things to do, they're gonna get themselves in trouble other places. Plus, there's a lot of educational benefits in keeping those interventionists in, and I just think it's important for our students to have those there. There's a lot of need in our community, so.
Kathleen, would you like to speak?
I'm very concerned about cutting the math interventionists. And we need
We really do.
math scores, great. So I'm also okay with the 6.21.
Bruce. I'm comfortable with 6.21. Ms. Kelly?
Yeah, no, I agree with, basically what everybody said, because I don't think the impact is as bad as what people are gonna think on the taxpayers. That's what I look at. Natalie made a good point. I don't wanna cut math, no way. I think that's a big mistake. And the extracurricular, I think is important. So I think it's another thing we had to sell it last year. What we did last year, we had to sell it last year and it went through. So I'm going with that and we'll see what happens.
Natalie?
I'm selling that.
So like, we know how hard the administrative team, they look at bare bones and they try to cut the fat out of everything in all these 3 schools and so I guess we're looking for a motion, if anybody wants to make a motion.
I'd make a motion that we proceed with the 6.21% budget for next year.
And I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes, I believe. 7-2. 6-2. Thank you. All right, now, we got this, we need a motion on this, family, what's it called again?
Yeah,
Family-
you wanna know anything about it first?
I got it, I got it, I got it. I got it. I read up
Oh,
on it, I
perfect.
researched it. Cause, if you're not really, if you're retired, you might not know a lot about it. Paid family medical leave. In 2023, Maine voted to establish paid Maine family medical leave. We were the 13th state in the country to approve it or start this. It's kind of like a fund. So the timeline on it is like the payroll contributions. They started taking your money out for this paid family medical leave. Started taking the money out January 1st, 2025. In 2026, after the money's being paid in, you're eligible to get 12 weeks of paid time off and getting getting money from this fund. So the benefit period wouldn't start till 5/1/2026. So presently now, we're taking 1% out of total premium and everything is 1% to go to this plan. 50% of it is paid by the employer, that would be the school, RSU 56, and 50% is coming out of the employee's paycheck. So now all of a sudden, right now, it's through Maine School Management Association, the state. So now there's an opportunity now to privatize it. There's a company called the Guardian. And they will cut that rate of 1% down to 0.88%. To cut it right to explain what that is, we would save $35,000 in premiums if we approve to go with this private Guardian plan. Another thing is they won't take any deductions, so you actually can get, so we were paying in now. So if we approve this private plan, there won't be any payroll deductions or payroll expenses on our account until 13 months from now, which would be when you're eligible to receive it. So, like I said, there's only 13 states, we're one of them. A lot of like small business people are not big fans of it, but a lot of employees are, or schools, hospitals. And it's good, like say, if that unexpected thing happens to a lot of families, they get crushed or whatever. This would help them float a little bit. So, any questions for anybody? Pam and Mary might know a little bit more about it.
Aren't they
Liz?
still debating this in Augusta? Aren't they still up in the air? There's money.
No,
coming in.
it's passed.
No, but there's money coming
There's,
in.
there's a lot of bills, I think, that have been proposed this session that would
We don't know if this is.
like
gonna-
handcuff
they're
it,
trying to
like,
stop it?
so.
Yeah, they're trying to.
I don't-
I'm not sure of that, but right, as of right now, it's
I
the
listened
law.
to it today.
So if we commit to this now, and
We
they,
can't do it now,
right, no,
but
but.
your money's going in there now.
We're already
Right.
paying it.
So if you commit to this, the Guardian one, instead of going with the Maine Department of Labor one. You don't pay in until for 13 months, and if the law gets changed, then we just are out, like you don't have to. We're not gonna pay a penalty. You don't have to pay a penalty. Okay, that was my question, like if it.
Still.
So the 35,000 figure that you quoted, that's because of dropping from the 1% to the 0.88%.
And not paying for the 13.
And
months.
that 13
Yeah.
months of not
Yeah.
having payments.
So it's a no-brainer financial. So obviously, when I say we, I mean people in the business office, not me.
It's already.
But they've already started taking the 1% from our employees, all of us. And that would come back and we'd have to redistribute it back to employees. And then we wouldn't be taking out until the 13 months is up.
So we'd actually be able to get our money back out of the Department of Labor?
So
No, it's in the fund, like,
It's not sent in yet.
From January to March of 25, that had to be paid, and we can't get that
and
back.
that's in there, okay,
But
but we could
as long
stop.
as we get approved, because the state has to approve us for the private plan, we can't just say, we're gonna do this private plan, the state has to say, okay, you can do the private plan. Then from April on, that can be returned to us and to the employees. As long as we get approved. If we don't get approved, then we just have to keep rolling and keep taking out the.
So I've seen this on other school board agendas, like obviously we're not the only school board that's going this direction. Do we know if other school districts have been approved? Like, do we know of anyone that hasn't been approved, I guess, to privatize?
So I don't think anybody has actually submitted anything yet, because it's
Okay.
just at the point where we just had this meeting the week before vacation. So we're bringing it to the board, and then we'll submit our paperwork to say this is what we're doing. So I think all of us are in the same time frame right now.
Okay.
Can I add a little bit to that? Sure. And through main school management, that's how the schools are being connected with Guardian is through main school management. And they can't process it on their end until they have 10 to 12 schools that are saying, yes, we want to go ahead with it. Because the Guardian doesn't want to do just two schools. So I assume, we haven't heard any different, but I'm assuming that main school management is still waiting to hear from those 10 to 12 schools.
I'm assuming it would save main school management some time and money too, if someone else is managing it.
No, because main school management is separate from main DOL.
Oh, okay.
They're just the ones who, they cover dental and life insurance for a lot of schools, and so they're just facilitating this work with the Guardian.
If I'm understanding, Guardian also guaranteed their rate for 3 years.
3 years. That's
So
great.
that was another concern was that, okay, so if we sign on with Guardian at 0.88, all of a sudden, a year from now, we're gonna go, hey, we're 1.2, and, you know, so they're guaranteeing their rate for 3 years. So it is kind of a win-win for the district if we're able to move forward with it, as well as if Guardian and they're gonna be willing to have enough schools that want to move with them. But it is definitely a win for us.
So, do you guys, the benefit is saving money. Drawbacks, what are the drawbacks?
So it's the same benefit package that you would get if you were in part of the main one. It's just done through a private insurance
So you
company.
don't see.
I don't really see a drawback to it.
And it doesn't affect the employees because no employees can start drawing on it until May of 2026 anyway. So, yeah.
Do you need a motion or just a?
Yeah, we'll need a motion. We'll see if there's any drawbacks on here.
That's what I was wondering.
Except for
Is Guardian just a main company? I mean, just deals with the main,
No, it's, let's see.
how many of the 13 states are using Guardian?
Quite a few of them from what they said on the webinar the other day they had with us.
So of course they're gonna jump on board.
Right.
Yeah. Walking a hard place. They make those ways.
Well, I guess I would make the motion that we purchase coverage from Guardian to provide a private main PFML plan in lieu of participating in the main program.
I'll second it.
They've been in business for 160 years. Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second? All those in favor? Anybody opposed?
They sound old.
Yeah, it just seems like the right thing to do. Hope it is.
Yeah.
All right, the next one's the warrant articles.
To make your life easier, Carl.
Thank you.
So as soon as you all get the two papers that are coming around, we'll start talking about the one with all the teeny tiny figures on it. Thank you. Brian told me that evidently I don't want anybody to read these figures because they are in like tree font.
Good thing Brad's. There we go.
Does everybody have the one that says running record of RSU 56 carryover?
Yes.
So you've seen this before, about the same time every year. And so what we're looking at is across the top are each of the fiscal years. And then down the left side is how we use the carryover, which is either funds that weren't expended or revenue of, received above what we anticipated for the year. And so, as you know, we've been working our way so that we have that 277,500 for carryover for several years out, which is great. And there's nothing in the 23-24 column at the top yet, because the auditors are still working with me to get that audit finalized. But I do believe that there will be enough for us to have the 277.5, again, that would be putting out towards the 28-29 budget. And you see in the 22-23 column, even after putting some aside to fill in the 26-27 budget, 277.5 and the 27-28. At this time last year, there was 170,960. And at that time, the finance committee recommended just letting it sit there and see how the 23-24 year turned out. But at the finance committee meeting that was held just before vacation, and you'll see this in a minute when we get to the warrant articles, the finance committee is recommending that that 170,960 be moved to the capital reserve account. Do you remember we put money into the capital reserve account and did the repairs to the high school gym and the high school roof with that money? And then there was money that was put aside in the bus garage capital reserve account. And so we have the new bus garage. And if you flip to the other side of that teeny tiny print page, you'll see the capital reserve fund balances. So right now, in the maintenance of plant modeling, there's $73,117. Because those monies were by vote of townspeople put into the capital reserve, and then 430,000 was used for the gym and the roof. That left only 1,208, but then 1 year, back in 21-22, we did receive additional subsidy. And so one of the warrant articles that we'll get to as well talks about how to handle additional subsidy. And so that was the 25% that went into capital reserve that particular year. So that's capital reserve, 73,000. Technology, it had 200,000 put in 2 different years. And last year, the townspeople agreed to use up to 250,000 of it, leaving 150,000. Brian's been working on that project, and as soon as the E-rate reimbursement comes in, whatever we receive, up to 123,200 will go back into the technology reserve fund. It's worded that way because we aren't sure exactly how much will come back. But the way the warrant article was worded last year, then we will be able to put it back into the technology reserve account. And then the bus garage, that was the 500,000, the 565,000, and that was all spent. And we have a beautiful garage. Any questions on these figures? Okay, there are no questions. If you look at the one that says the warrant articles to be voted on. The first one is to allow transferring amounts exceeding 5% of total appropriation between cost centers for 25-26 fiscal year. That warrant article we've had in there every year that I can remember. So the board, I don't know how you want to do this. You want me to go over all of these and then you'll work on which ones they are willing to include in the warrant articles?
Works for me.
Okay. Any questions on number 1? And number 2, there's where the school board would be authorized to transfer up to the 170,960 from fund balances to capital reserve, if that's what you so choose. And this note will go right in the newspaper that we put out for the budget that says that approving of this article will not increase the operating budget. Because it's already sitting from carryover, and will just be transferred over. Number 3, at the finance committee meeting, the finance committee felt that they weren't going to recommend to put any in the technology reserve fund, especially because there will be some coming back from E-rate to bump that back up again. But the whole board can choose differently. And then number 4 is the one that talks about if we receive additional state subsidy and how it would be divvied out. And that's the same percentages that have been used for the last however many years. Number 5 has not ever been used here. It is available, but the finance committee felt that what is being done with those carryover amounts was fine and didn't want to get into this flexible contingency fund. Any questions for me on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I'm not sure I made your life easier, Kyle, but I tried.
Dave, all right, so everybody got, we're not, number 3 on the paper that's crossed off, we're not gonna put that in the warrant. Number 5, we're not gonna put it in the warrant, but we are gonna put in the cost center transfers, which is if Kenny runs out of money, we
It's
can
always
steal
Kenny.
it from, yeah,
Okay.
we can steal it from nutrition or whatever, and it's not a huge amount. But it is, considerable amount. As far as transferring the $170,000 into the capital reserve account. Or was it unallocated capital reserve?
It's just maintenance of plan.
Yeah.
So it's for nothing in particular right now, but at the point when the board decided what they wanted to use it for.
Isn't there like an unallocated and an allocated funds? These would be unallocated, right? It's 170, that's why, that,
Not really.
not really.
They'd be unallocated if you left them and did nothing with them. If
Right.
you put them in a capital reserve fund, they become allocated funds. They're now in the capital reserve, which by the way, your superintendent does have
Plans.
plan for what you need to have done next, because 2 out of your 3 school buildings are now air conditioned and 1 is not. And so I think it's something to work towards.
And as far as, I don't know if this is what you meant, Carl, as far as
Yeah.
an allocated. It's not for a particular project yet.
Yeah,
It's sitting in the capital reserve to be determined later what to be used for.
And yeah, read something else on there that it confused me, but it does not gonna increase the budget or decrease it.
Are you looking for a motion for this, Carl?
Yeah, I don't know, does anybody have any questions?
I'll cut the chase, and I'd like to make a motion that we accept number 1 and number 2 and number 4, increase it included in our warrant articles.
Alright, all those in favor?
The only thing I'd like to add to that is there will be another article, obviously there's other articles that are just commonplace. But there will be one to ask the townspeople to let us borrow money for the bus, because we do have approval to buy a bus, and so there'll be one that says, can the school borrow up to X amount for 3 years, for a 3-year note.
Thanks, Mary.
Moving right along. Next person. We have a calendar for board meeting dates in your package. Everybody, you wanna look at it real quick?
There are no changes, no surprises. You'll continue to meet on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. What do we meet on? 2nd and 4th Tuesday. You have one copy.
calendar?
Except that
It's
right behind your minutes.
Like
It's
this.
on your-
It's a piece of-
It's on your minutes side. It's a single sheet.
You get it.
There's one red
I
line.
looked through all the papers, but maybe it's stuck. It's stuck. I got it.
Okay.
I was like, wait a minute, I see everybody else's. You just kind of general consensus. The only thing I would like you to consider, well, if you're okay with continuing with the same nights, that's awesome. Because I think that's easiest for everybody not to change it. But the June 9th, this year we switched it to a Monday because you didn't want to do it on the night that you were voting. Is that what you would like to do next year as well? Because then it would be on Monday. I think it's probably June 8th because I have 2 9 listed.
I think it's better to.
I won't be at that. Is that okay? Because I have to work on my days.
Any concerns? Right, now we're gonna move on to the first reading of JJE student fundraising activities. Can I,
Do you want? Barbara usually goes through the changes. Do you want me to do that? Or you want to just do it?
no, you can do it
Okay.
with pleasure.
Okay, so it's pretty easy to follow, so, we would want the building administrator and the athletic director to know, what's happening, because there's just so much overlap, and we just feel like everybody should be on the same page. And then, under number 2, we always they had to have a service or a product, we'd like to have service product or an experience or activity, so like if you had movie night at school or something, they're not getting something, but they're getting an experience. Chuck a duck at halftime, you don't really get anything, you get an experience of chucking your duck in the middle and hoping that you win the jackpot. Like, just try to get the experience as much as the rest of them. And that was, I believe, the only two changes. You need a motion.
Yes, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion and move forward with the changes.
Okay. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passes. First reading of KF, community use of school facilities. Can you hit us with the changes?
Yep, so there's really, this one's super easy as well. It's instead of having the applications going to the building principals, we want all applications to run through our activity athletics director. Because again, then one person's getting them all, they're all in one calendar, as opposed to the principal approving one thing and this principal approving another thing, and we have the same buildings being used, and so it just makes it easier for one person to collect them all. I make a motion that we move forward with the said change for policy A.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? First reading of JJIF, the old management of concussions and other head injuries.
Yeah, this one has a lot of yellow,
Kind of
so I hope you had a
hot sauce.
chance to look at it. Basically, the nurses looked at this. There was a new policy that came out. They looked at our policy and the new one, and these are the changes that they felt would be better for our district to follow. Here, so I'm not gonna read them all to you because there's a lot. It looks pretty right on from the medical standpoint. Anybody have questions before I make a motion? Okay, I make a motion that we move forward and update our policy with the concussion reintroduction to school policy, JJIF.
Second.
All those in favor?
Sorry.
Okay, now we're, JJIF on concussion.
We're replacing it with the JJIF.
Concussion information and acknowledgement sheet.
So this is the one that we sent to parents and, yes. So they've shortened it actually considerably, and it's really just the acknowledgement sheet and some information to go home to the parents and what the parents have to sign off.
And each student gets this?
So they all see it at the beginning.
Did I?
And then. Yes, you
Okay.
did.
Okay, I probably did.
I'm pretty sure that you would have been called if you had not signed it.
Yes.
Well, this is just the information. You know, I did sign one. I remember. It looked longer before.
It did. So I make a motion that we move forward with more simplified version of policy JJIF-E.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving right along to board member comments. Does anyone have a comment?
I have a comment that doesn't have much to do with what we're talking about tonight, but, I had, emailed, Barb and Pam about just looking at our Title X policy. Because I think it's a concern for a lot of community members that, we would like to do what we can to get our funding back. So, we don't need that. So, but, I think they're a reframing policy and I don't think it ever changed. Is that correct? So this board, when we had the policy committee, opted not to make the changes under the Biden administration. So our policies are still aligned to the 2020 Trump policies that were in place. So we can certainly look at it again at our next policy committee meeting on May 27th, but they are aligned. And I do want to just take this moment to clarify that districts are sub-grant awardees through the Maine Department of Education for our federal funds. So if any changes need to be made, they need to be made at the Maine Department of Education and the Maine Principals Association in order for us to get our funds. Making changes here does not ensure your funds come here because they don't come directly here. They have to funnel through the Maine Department of Education. So if you're looking for changes that ensure that we get our federal funds, then you really need to be working with the Department of Education and the Maine Principals Association, just to clarify that, because we are sub-recipients, everything funnels through them.
Joy.
I had talked with Barb also about this because, when I was collecting my signatures, that was the main concern of everybody was, well, where do we stand? How come nothing's been said, blah, blah, blah. And telling them that, well, stand with that policy, it's already in, didn't seem to fly with it. They want it in, newspaper or a written letter to them or something. They want something concrete showing them that yes, in fact, we, are following that, not just my telling them that, well, you can look it up in our policy, we're following it. No, they, because these other schools have, you can see them in the newspapers every week, another school says that they're gonna follow, you know. So I think that is all that, we can take that up in policy.
Sure, yeah, we definitely can.
But that's what, I think that's what the people want.
I think they're looking at some sort of, straight out clarification. And that's what I'm hearing too from parents.
Yeah.
So.
Me too.
Yeah, I think we're all hearing the same thing. Because of all the schools around us or north of us or, but they had changed to go back to their old policy, right? Because they had, which we didn't do, so that was good for us. But I do think that when we get back in the policy meeting, that we need to do some kind of resolution, make some kind of statement. I think it would make people feel comfortable that at least we're trying to get our federal money. We're not,
Right.
we need that federal money. And we, and like you said, I guess it funnels through the Department of Education, it comes from federal to department for each state.
Right.
So it's gonna be really interesting to see how this all flies. Because some people say, well, it depends on what Augusta does. It's gonna affect us, or does it affect us individually as a school who makes the decision that we're gonna follow federal Title IX?
I think it might be important for us to put that statement out so that the Maine Principals Association understands that that other schools also feel this way, not just one or two. That's all.
I think
Kathleen?
the voters have a right to know how we as a board stand on boys and girls sports and boys and girls bathrooms and locker rooms.
And that comes back to our Title IX. So we never changed our policy. Our policy
Yes,
was still the same. We never changed it. So.
And we don't need single-use bathrooms anymore, we just boys and boys and girls and girls.
Yeah.
Any other board member comments on?
Right here.
Bruce?
I'm gonna go on a different subject. First one's a comment. Please, everybody, put your 4 first readings back in your packet, make Cindy's life easier. That way, go digging it all up.
I did, I put it all.
Second thing is, my pitch is gonna be for our buildings, grounds and transportation. You're gonna see on our warrant that Mary had said, we're gonna have another warrant out there to authorize to borrow money for another bus. Let's face it, folks, we're in a rural area, we do a lot of transportation, not only for schools, but for sports, Project Grad, you name it, we got buses moving everywhere, so we need to continue to improve our fleet. And this is gonna give us another avenue to continue to keep our fleet updated and in retrospect, helps us reduce on repairs, maintenance and everything else. Well, I shouldn't say maintenance, but repairs and general things that a newer bus would not have a problem with, so. Please support, tell your constituents and your voters to continue supporting the school.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else? All right, superintendent's report. You have anything else to add? Jerry, give it to her.
I did. So last week, as you know, was April vacation, so hold your hats. The rest of the school year will fly by in a blink. Reminder that the Region 9 budget vote is next Wednesday, the 7th, at 6 o'clock at the Region 9 cafeteria. I encourage you to go and vote for the budget as presented. And then the last thing is kind of awkward because I try to avoid political conversations when I do my reports, and I would never, like, please hear me, I would never try to tell you how to vote or which ways you should vote or what your thoughts need to be. I just want to share what I have been told through the Attorney General's office around the people's veto. And again, to sign or not to sign is completely your choice. And I just want you to know the ramifications for the school district if the people's vote gets signed and goes through. But what we've been told in the superintendent's group is if they get 67,000 signatures by a set, I think it's June 18th, whatever the set date is, that it in effect negates the state budget starting July 1st, which means there's no funding for anything, like the budget would be frozen, schools will not receive their subsidies, and the likelihood of them being reinstated will be after November, and we've been told potentially late December, early January. So you're talking from July 1st until basically January 1st, that schools would not potentially have any subsidies coming from the state. So I want to be clear that Mary and I are pretty financially savvy, and we can get through a couple of months making payroll. But come September, if there's no money, there's no payroll, which means there's no school. Like, people aren't coming to work and not getting paid, like that's just not a thing. So again, I understand both sides, I've heard both sides, and I understand both sides of the issue. And again, I'm not telling you which way you should sign or not sign, but I just want you to understand the impact to the schools if this is to go through, because that's what we're being told from the state and from the Attorney General's office. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And it makes me uncomfortable to even talk about it because I'm not, like, this is not my place, it's not my political stance. And I want you to be clear that I don't have a stance one way or the other. I just think people need to understand all of the consequences of signatures and what they stand for. So it's that. Sorry. That made me really uncomfortable. But I just felt like it's important for people to hear, like, because I don't think that's
I don't think people
Top of their-
understand that, like,
Right.
as people are talking about signing petitions and stuff. I don't think people understand the potential ramifications.
Right, and that's all I want to say, like, that's what I wanted to say, like, I support whatever you want to do, you have rights to do whatever you want to do, I just want you to know that stuff.
I think the inflation in the budget though, there is.
And I am not disagreeing with
Yeah.
you, and I, like, and again, and I don't want this to sound like it's a political statement, because I understand both sides of this, I just wanted you to understand, and as you talk to other people in the community, for them to understand that this is we've been told a real possibility that we could be not funded July 1st, so just wanted you to be aware.
Not just us.
No.
All.
Right. That's all the cheer and goodwill I have to bring to you tonight.
Great. Administrative report is.
None tonight,
None?
because this is when I
Charlotte
meeting.
there. Didn't want to do anything. About new hires,
Done. There's nothing now. You can go right to committee reports.
committee reports, no student representative, the policy committee says
May 27th.
May 27th at 5 o'clock. Is there anyone who'd like to speak about that?
That's when we're meeting. We'll have some of the policies that we just talked about tonight. We'll also have graduation requirements will be on that one.
The finance committee, I went to that, Bruce went to that, and Dawn was there. And Mary and Pam. So our audit's almost wrapped up. There's no penalties or anything. We have an extension. We'll get it pretty soon. The audit, we get audited every 3 years.
Every year.
Every year. That's right. Oh, that was at the fund. There's a new software where Mary and Cindy have to, when we change one year to the other, it's called Fund, and they have to do all kinds of, what do you have to do? Training, watching something, was it?
Right, webinars to teach us how to
Webinars.
move from June 30 to July 1.
Because we have new financial software, so that, please, try to understand what they're going through. Change is always not good at first, or maybe it's not good at the end, but please bear with it.
Depends.
So we went over our revenues, we had, athletics, 82.7, no. What do we have, other revenues? Mary, help me with that one.
Main care.
Main care, we got a little bit of that, there was some that we're waiting on. Can't remember just what they were.
And then all the towns are up to date with their
Yeah.
monthly payments.
There you go. Expenditures, we're at 21% with like roughly. We have 21% of our budget left, we're roughly 25% left of the school year, we're in real good shape on that. The debt service on the elementary school is gonna be paid off, but 98, most of that money is already given us by the state, so we're really not gonna save any money, or it's not gonna cost us any money, but it's paid off. We did the carryover thing,
In 2027, Carl,
2027,
not yet.
not yet,
Getting close.
yeah. We talked about that, the carryover, the figures. I won't really throw the figures at you, but you know how we set aside the 277,000, and we're working on setting that aside for 28, 29 right now presently, right? And then we're talking about the capital reserve, the 170,000 of the carryover remaining. Right now it's currently at 73,000, and Brian, like I said, is expecting a Z rate. So we gotta do something to that. With that, we talked about needs. Bruce talks about a bus. Pam talks about AC in the middle school. Central air conditioning would be quite expensive. We talked about maybe heat pumps or alternatives to a central air conditioning system. Yeah.
Just kidding.
That's all we had.
That's that, so the money in the reserve fund, we would need voter approval. And then we talked at the meeting, we talked about the warrant articles, which you guys already approved. And then we closed the meeting and thought things were looking pretty good. Bruce commented on how good the schools were. Our roofs, our buses, our bus garage, everything is, and everything, as soon as something even starts to have a problem, we seem to be able to get it fixed. Are we fully staffed right now? We're pretty close, right? So things are looking good as far as being a school system. Anything, Bruce? You pretty well summed it up. Don? No? Good. Who's next? Curriculum,
I haven't met.
building and grounds. Don?
Yeah,
We did,
Oh, we did meet before break.
We did.
Sorry, I'm great.
Yeah, I was just,
Sorry,
I was
sorry.
there.
The only things that I didn't think of, because I didn't prepare to do this, because usually Brad or whatever does it, but I know we talked about the math program, the amplified, and staying with the program we have, even though there was glitches, not to change, and I think it was like the kindergarten, that they were gonna work with them at Charlie's school to fix the problems that they were experiencing, but yet they felt it was gonna be a good program.
So another, basically, I think we'll have some discussion probably with a larger board at some point, but
Right.
the idea would be to continue kind of piloting this math program next year.
Not changing.
So that it's all-
And yeah, so kind of continuing to evaluate, and it sounds like they, as we've been evaluating it this year, there were particular concerns at the kindergarten level. It sounds like the company's working to address some of those issues, so we're looking to do another year of evaluation, and I'm kind of continuing in that direction.
Also
No.
science.
Yep, and then we also started talking about science techs, kind of looking at the area of need that would be next. After we addressed social studies last year, Some of the science texts are quite old. So we were kind of looking, and I think some of them are probably some of the same books that I had used when I was here, so probably good to start looking. And yeah, and so Jason had gotten some sample texts that would be for freshman year, like physical science. And so we have those to start reviewing. And they're published by National Geographic, or National Geographic is part of the collaborative group that puts this text out. And so I'll say, like, I took one home and gave it to my 7th grader to look through. And it's a really cool text, like it's really engaging. Obviously, the images and photography and stuff are really good, which you'd expect for National Geographic. And so I think we're just gonna keep passing it around. It doesn't sound like something that we're gonna jump on urgently, but over the next year or so, kind of look at opportunities. And the physical science group had weighed in on like a text that they thought would be good for us to review. And Jason's waiting for some feedback from the other science teachers on, he's given them some texts that he thinks would be like the right replacements in terms of what they're using now, like what would be most comparable but more modern. And so everyone's kind of reviewing, and I guess stay tuned. I think there'll be more discussion on that.
Region 9 and Jason is along working with Region 9 on how that all set up with their getting their credits. Yeah, so that was a big thing.
Yep.
And Jason did a great job.
Yep, absolutely.
As usual.
Did you present that to us there? Yes.
Yep, standards.
All right, thank you, Natalie. Sorry to overlook you. Personnel committee, that's you too, isn't it?
It is, no meetings, but lots of interviews.
Ad hoc committee.
You wanna know about negotiations, or let's get that one?
You're gonna find that out probably.
Yeah, that's important too, isn't it? Yeah, we have negotiations on the way.
We're
Sorry.
meeting tomorrow night, and I'm presuming I'm in executive session,
You
so
are.
I'll inform you then.
Ad hoc,
Meeting May 7th.
May 6th. So we have an executive session, don't we?
We do.
So we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Sorry, I missed the motion and then.
Natalie, Bruce Druck.
Natalie and Bruce.
I'll just take their time. If you want to say what I can just. I'm gonna, forget you. And.
They still have geography. So geography.
Why can you house? We need the box off.
Okay. Oh, right. Cindy, I forget that.
I'm leaving box and I'll jump in late.
They have it.
Well, you know what time I'll.
Yes.
You're gonna go see.
Yeah. You're alive.
Are you ready for a motion?
8:11, we are now out of executive session and we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve a 3-year contract with the teachers.
Second.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed? We have enough people here to pass it?
Yep, because we had one extra. And one person left, so we're good.
So now we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Julie's not here.
Motion.
No, you can second it, Dawn already motioned.
Okay.
All those in favor?